Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to our Epic Dad podcast. I'm Ken, and I have with me Rich over in the UK. Rich, how are you today?
I'm great. Hi, Ken. Yes, good to see you.
Great to see you also. So, Rich and I have just been talking offline about some of the many adventures and family gatherings and interactions and that kind of thing that we've both had over the last several weeks in between discussions. And I was able to make the comment back to him that he was doing a lot of things to empower himself as a father, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about today is empowering fathers or families is which is the correct terminology there, Rich.
Yeah, so we've been looking at our three main aims for Epic Dad. So last time we talked about supporting men, and
Hmm.
that's really to do with well-being support. Before we even get into parenting, it's really looking at where men are at, how fathers are doing, just creating safe spaces for them to be supported and really do what we can to help support them in their well-being. Then today we're looking at empowering fathers. So the whole thing of equipping dads in their parenting role. And then next time, our third main aim is transforming families. So we're going
Hmm.
to talk about positive family interaction and strengthening family relationships. But yeah, today our focus is very much on empowering fathers and helping dads see the value of who they are as dads and what they bring and their need for equipping and to be strengthened and reassured that they've got what it takes to be epic.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that clarification. So when I think about as we've started each one of these episodes, we kind of reflect on what the term means. As I think about empowerment, power, the word, the thought about like somebody going out and making themselves stronger, going to the gym or exercising or stressing yourself and putting your body under some level of load or difficulty in order to strengthen it for some future level of effort or work. Um, with regard to empowering men, I can't say that I've got a solid idea in my head because, like so many of these discussions, we realize that our society maybe falls short in a lot of areas when it comes to preparing men to be effective men, fathers, family members, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm super interested to hear like what thoughts and ideas and successful initiatives that you've taken part in with Epic Dad that you found provide you the ability to do that to empower the men that you're interacting with. So let's get started. Like what ideas, what thoughts, or what experiences would you like to share with us regarding empowering?
Yeah, sure. So for me, like empowering fathers, a big part of that is giving dads reassurance and bringing encouragement to them to let them know that they don't have to be a perfect dad. They don't have to get it right all the time to be effective in their fathering. I
Hmm.
think being open, being self-aware, being open to support, you're putting yourself in a great position to be empowered, to learn, to grow, to be more effective in your fathering, which clearly benefits the dad, but also their children and the wider family. So our approach for empowering fathers is really coming alongside dads to listen, to help them identify where they're really thriving and to celebrate the wins. I think sometimes we can focus on the things we're not happy with, things we want to do better at, and that can lead to us feeling a bit um, just discouraged, really, and overwhelmed. But let's really highlight the good things that are happening and the positive interactions with our children, and celebrate the wins and seek to build on those and grow stronger in those areas, as well as addressing those things that maybe we are finding harder to do and to be effective in, but find ways to work on that as well. And I always say to dads, to admit you're struggling isn't actually a sign of weakness. To me, it's a sign of strength.
Hmm.
To acknowledge that actually I could do with a bit of advice in this, or I do need to work on this area. I think that's so good for the dad to say that and admit that, and good for the children. When we just double down and like, oh, I'm okay, I've got this, and we're not really being honest with ourselves and not addressing things that need to be addressed. So I think to say I am struggling or I'm not sure about this, it's not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength, and you can progress from that point. And I think a lot of the empowering happens through like a band of brothers. I think
Hmm.
being in a room with like-minded guys, we come from different backgrounds, different experiences, yes, different ages of children, maybe different family context, but there's still that commonality. We are fathers or father figures, and we desire to be the best we can for our kids, and we want them to thrive in life. And just to be in an environment where there's openness, we can be real, we can acknowledge our struggles, but also share about our wins, share what we found worked. And that kind of forum can be incredibly empowering. In one way, dads can feel like, oh, it's not just me that finds this hard. So
Hmm.
that's that reassurance to know it's not
Yeah.
just you. But also there's that inspiration to hear about things that dads have done that's worked really well, or shared some kind of experiences and just good news stories that can give us a boost and can be really empowering so we can learn from each other. And I always try and say to the dads, I'm not an expert, far from it. I'm learning from them. So
Hmm.
we're all in this together. So if I can facilitate opportunities for dads to talk, to share, to support one another, and that could be so empowering to just to know we're not on our own in this, because I think it's so easy to be isolated. I've spoken to dads that they said that, they go to work, they have their work colleagues, but they won't necessarily socialize with them.
Hmm.
And then when they're not at work, they're at home, they're spending time with their family, which is what they want to do, which is wonderful. But there's a danger of becoming isolated, that our lives can be just at home with the family or at work doing our job. But actually having guys that we can hang out with, we can talk with, whether it's a one-to-one friendship or in a small group or a shared interest activity we can do together, that is so needed and so empowering because it supports our well-being. We feel our parenting skills are being sharpened through those conversations, and it just reduces that sense of isolation, because this is such an important role we do as dads. We're not meant to do it on our own. We may have our partner and we support each other in that relationship, but it's great to have other dads as well in our world, because we can learn together, grow together, and become even more epic.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing occurred to me as you were talking early on in that discussion about um, dads feeling like they're having a difficult time or being off track or what have you. Our kids, for example, they get a pretty clear indication as to where they are performance wise when they're in school. My daughter, my youngest, just brought her first report card of the year home the other day, and we went over all her grades and talked about her classes, and she had I feel, a pretty solid understanding of where she was strong and where she needed some work over the course of the next few weeks or so. Even at work, most of us get some sort of regular performance feedback, either formal or informal, sometimes written down, sometimes verbal, but there's some type of regular ongoing feedback, usually from a supervisor or a boss or whatever, that you get an understanding of where you're on track, where you're off track, what you need to change. But as a father, as a parent in general, but specifically as a father in this discussion, like unless you have a spouse or a family member who's very clearly evaluating and oriented to that sort of perspective and that observation and has the ability to communicate with you in such a way that you don't get hurt or offended by their advice, critique, or feedback. Very few of us ever really get any kind of ongoing, meaningful, consistent feedback as to what we're doing well, what we're doing poorly, and what we might think about changing or developing over the course of the coming months or years. So I guess I would ask back to you, like, do you have any tips for fathers as to how they can kind of better gauge where they are with regard to all of the different aspects of being an effective father?
I think, I mean, it's great what you said about having people in our lives to kind of, challenge us, but also encourage us and, just share any concerns. Also, just encourage, celebrate the things they see that we're doing really well.
Hmm.
But I'll just give you just a funny example of with Epic Dad, I can be so engaged in the project, running various groups, activities, supporting dads, giving them opportunities to spend time with their kids through our events, or just really encouraging them to find more things to do with their children and build that relationship. And I just remember one occasion when I was just super busy, going out and about, doing lots of things, teaching dads to be epic dads. And Amber would be, my wife would be like, so when are you going to spend time with our kids and focus on being an epic dad yourself and make sure that you're giving them time? And I thought, oh my goodness, yeah, I've been so busy recently. I've
Uh,
barely had any kind of quality one-to-one time with them or just with all the kids together. And I thought I really need to make sure I'm practicing what I preach here. Like get so carried away in helping others and real and then recognizing that I'm dropped the ball a bit there in my own kind of personal life. And so I think having people that can speak into that and also just being self-aware, like maybe just to ask ourselves the question, what have I done with my kids this week?
mm,
What kind of conversations have we had? What activities have we enjoyed together? Have I been consumed with work? Have I just been doing my own hobbies and interests, or have I been present, not just in the house, but there in body, but to be there in mind, to be fully present and engaged and involved and enjoying time with the kids and being available to them. So
mm,
I think just becoming self-aware as dads and taking time to reflect yeah, even at the end of the day, before we go to bed and when we reflect on the day, to think, have I actually had meaningful conversations with my kids today? Have
mm,
I mean, there are seasons, of course, there are things that crop up and there are demands sometimes with work and other situations that need our time, but we don't want that to become the norm, that those are just in certain circumstances where we may need to give more time and energy to particular things, but that shouldn't be all the time that the kids never see us. We want to be there with them. And I think for me, I found car journeys really, we've talked about this, I think, before,
mm,
like a really integral time for me to have a conversation with my kids. And I like it when it's one to one. If I'm giving them a lift to a club or picking them up from work or whatever it might be, just having those conversations one to one, just to catch up, ask about their day, and they're really special kind of times to re-engage, to share special moments together. And also the meal table. It's just however busy life gets to really try and get those evenings in the week to share a meal and have that family time together and regroup. So I think it's yeah being intentional
mm,
and seizing those moments when they come.
yeah.
Not to be looking at our phone when we're at the dinner table, not to be just driving in silence or just having the music playing, but actually taking those moments as a positive opportunity to re-engage
Mm.
and yeah, find out what's happening in their world. Not be so consumed with our world and what we're up to, but making sure we're um we're present for them in those moments.
Very good. Great thoughts, great pointers. It occurs to me again that as you were discussing the different ways and methods and that kind of thing to interact with kids, is like we do engage with our kids on many different levels, right? We may be talking with them about education, about some disciplinary action. We may be engaged in play. We may be engaged in instruction. We may be engaged in, all these different sort of each independent, but obviously they all overlap in some ways. Um, and we have to be mindful about being balanced across all of those areas as well. I know as a young father, um, I would interact with my kids every day, but maybe 80 or 90% of that interaction would be telling them what not to do. So some sort of like response in disciplinary action. And at the end of a week, I could have asked myself, am I engaging with my kids? And I would have said, yeah, I talk to my kids every day. But the reality as I reflect back is that the encouragement aspect and the coaching and supportive aspects were probably very low on that balance scale, and the directive and the disciplinary were very high. So I needed to establish a different level of
Really good.
balance and engagement.
Yeah.
Well, that recognition took me many years, but once I started to make that sort of shift in the way that I was balancing in the interaction with them, I felt more empowered because
Wow.
I was giving them in a lot of ways, the responsibility for their own actions. Instead of thinking I was always the one responsible for correcting the things that I saw wrong, I was giving them the responsibility for being um, in charge of their own actions and behaviors and that kind of thing, which allowed me to take back my own focus and to engage in endeavors and reading and whatever I wanted to do that was more affiliated with my natural flow rather than worrying about them and their issues all the time. So, um,
Do you
yeah,
know this?
empowering.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this really comes back to the letters of epic:
Mm,
encourager, provider, instructor, carer. So
hmm
those four fatherhood roles that we want to empower fathers in, really those roles are outworked through relationship, through interaction. So like you
mm,
said, we want to be proactive in encouraging our children and spending time with them, enjoying play, but also we want to be providing for their needs, helping them practically. Then we want to be instructing them, giving time to help them with their education, teaching them right from wrong, and then just simply showing them that care, but that nurturing relationship, letting them know we love them, we're there for them, being a listening ear. So all of those kind of roles need to be outplayed, don't they, in
mm,
relationship through interaction, and we don't want to just all our interaction, like you said, to be on the discipline side, that we're not looking at the other areas too. Because I heard a great quote: connection before correction, connection before correction.
hmm
And sometimes we might focus so much on correcting them, but have we actually made the effort to have that connection with them first? Because
hmm
the relationship's got to be the foundation to everything.
Yeah. One of the things that even early on in engaging with Epic Dad that occurred to me was that you are teaching and therefore empowering fathers just by providing an environment and an atmosphere where play and silliness and joy are the norm. They're almost kind
Yeah.
of like the expectation, It's like you couldn't come into the environment of one of those Epic Dad events and not enjoy yourself and not have a good time. The entire environment was just, you know, many people would look at it as what would you say, like loud and chaotic and craziness, but it was fun. I mean, you literally could not spend the 2 or 3 hours of that time frame there and walk away and not feel uplifted and feel like, okay, I that was valuable, that was worth my time, and I feel, good. I feel stronger for having participated in something like that.
I'm
So,
so glad you mentioned that because that's why we call them fun clubs.
mhm,
Because the power of fun is massive, the impact it can have on family relationships. And it is about empowering because if we can create that environment, that fun environment where dads and kids can just be free, be relaxed, be together, have fun, enjoy the activities, then my hope is as they do that in an organized activity, that the dads will feel empowered to do more of the same at home. Because I think at home, we can get so sidetracked from working from home, jobs around the house. Kids want to play. We're like, oh, later, later, then later doesn't come. But
mhm,
actually, they go out and they enjoy a session provided for them together and connect with other dads and kids. So we're all enjoying that session together. Then afterwards, they're like, yeah, I want to do more of this. Let's buy that game ourselves, or let's carry on the fun when we get home later. So it just brings fun a bit more front and center into family life and the father-child interaction. So it is definitely an empowering experience, I think, for the time, but also how that can guide dads and inspire them for what they do outside of the groups as well.
yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you get into in your instructor or coaching roles with other fathers, do you get into the concept of self-empowerment, the things that they can do even outside of interactions with you or your groups or initiatives in order to continue to build empowerment?
Yeah, definitely. I think I feel like if I do any one-to-one work with the dads,
hmm
there's always this sense of like, so we've had this conversation, what's the next steps?
hmm
What can you do now? So we're not like just a self-contained session of, oh, that was a really interesting conversation, but for them to go away and think, right, this is what I'm going to do. So really having identifying action points for, changes to make at home, new things they want to do with the kids.
Hmm.
There's always that it's not just about let's share some information, but let's look at practical things that can be done to now outlive the topic. We
Yeah.
talk about being an encourager, that they will go away feeling self-empowered, encouraged to now implement certain things to help. And then next time we meet up, they would share some stories of things that they've done and things that they've
Hmm.
learned and interactions they've had. And so it helps them to see progression. So we never want any kind of session just to be a self-contained information session, but it's always
Yeah.
about momentum that it builds and positive things that it leads to.
That's wonderful. Yeah, to me, the importance of having some sort of framework of ongoing personal goals and things with which you're striving toward, whether you actually accomplish them or not, just to have something to work toward that's the most empowering thing I've ever experienced in my life is, if you have an educational goal, like you are and Amber working on your master's degrees right now, if you have an exercise goal, you want to achieve some certain level of weight loss or fitness, if you have a, financial goal, you want to save enough money for a vacation or holiday or Christmas or something like that. Those types of things give us sort of this automatic internal energy and motivation to push us toward working something towards something. And I think that's almost an automatic source of self-empowerment as well. So I always sort of encourage people, like, if you don't have anything else, start with a goal. Just put something on a piece of paper and tape it to your bathroom mirror and give you something to work toward. So
That's
um,
really good.
man, great conversation. I'm empowered as I am at the end of every one of these discussions with you, but specifically this one because we're talking about empowerment. So fantastic. Any final thoughts, words of advice, or tips for our dads out there on ways that they can uh, gain and hold on to self-power?
Yeah, so I often kind of have points beginning with the same letter to help kind of help dads remember and
Uh-huh.
to reinforce the learning. So there's three that I've used in some of our parenting courses and conversations with dads, and they are commitment, character, compassion. And these are areas I really want to empower dads in and them to kind of empower themselves in that for them to thrive as fathers, to be epic. It's about making a decision to be committed to their family,
Hmm.
commitment first and foremost, and the character really is to think about what kind of man, father do I want to be? Because so much of what our children learn, so much of what we teach our children is from what they see modeled in our own lives, not just from what we say, but it's what we do, that they're always listening, they're always always watching, they're taking things on board. So to really help dads see the importance of how we live our lives and to have kind of consistent character and men of integrity who love our family, who care for our community, that are loyal, honest, all these kind of kindness, all these important qualities, respect for others, respect for ourselves. So character, I think, is a really essential kind of area for us to kind of focus on and give time to. And then obviously the third one I mentioned is compassion.
Mm.
And for our kids to always know that we love them no matter what, and to really embody that kind of heart of compassion towards our family and our community. And again, our children will be moved by that, inspired by that. And so I think those three things I really like to get dads to think about in the whole empowering process. How can I demonstrate my commitment to my family? How can I work on my character so I model something good to them? How can I show compassion to my family, to the world?
Mm.
Because it's about leaving a legacy, really, as fathers, leaving a legacy of love that outlives us. That the memory of us will be a blessing because of the life that we've lived and what we've demonstrated to our children and how we father and how we are, not perfect men, but epic dads, that we really do embody encouragement, provision, instruction, and care. in our lives, and that will help our children now, and it help them as they grow up and become parents themselves. That they will go on to be empowered as parents one day, and pass on similar things to their children. Hopefully, that we've shown them in how we've lived.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's to me is one of the areas that our cultures seem to lack in many ways that we don't have really these foundational guiding principles. You know, in the US, we've got our Constitution and our laws and that kind of thing that we all know we're supposed to obey. But I'm talking about like the three terms you just used to me are they're clear, they're concise, they're easy to remember, they're guiding focal principles that you literally could establish for yourself as this is my guidance for life, you know? And I think that's we need a lot more of that. So I'm glad that you've established that and are consistent in your communication of those principles that are important to you to other fathers as well. So great discussion as always. Thanks, Rich. I learned quite a bit as I always do with you about fatherhood and empowerment, and this stuff just feels good. So it's fun to discuss as well. So thanks for your time today. Thank you everybody for tuning in and listening, and we'll see you next time for our final discussion on transforming
Transforming
families. Correct?
families.
Excellent.
Look
Excellent. All
forward to
right.
it.
Have an epic day. Take care.